Hi, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Alana and today's video is another book review. I actually have plenty more book reviews coming in the future. I have a whole stack of books that are in the queue, but I will break it up a little bit with the content after this one. But today's video, again, is a book review, The Turnout by Megan Abbott. Let me get it. I showed this book in a haul several videos ago. So if you go through, it was in the only haul that is on my channel at this moment. No, lies. More is coming. So it's in a haul video. I might link it down below if I remember. And this is a ballet thriller, and it was wild. It was wild. Much to discuss without spoilers, but much to discuss. Do you see this? Get back in your spot, you cheeky madam. I actually have a visual aid for today's video. I'm actually going to start with a quote because it kind of goes in with my visual aid. Satin, cardboard, burlap, paper hardened with glue. That's all they were. Pointe shoes. But they were so much more, the beating heart of ballet, and the fact that they lasted only weeks or less than an hour made them all the more so, like a skin you shed constantly. Then a new skin arrived, needed to be shaped. So, visual aid time. People often have the misconception for some reason, maybe I should look into where this comes from, that the pointe shoe has a block at the toe, at the box of the shoe, and that the dancer is literally dancing on a block. False. It is everything that she described. It is literally just fabric and cardboard and burlap that have been hardened. So we have the visual aid here. These just came in the mail today, which is perfect timing because my old pair are looking real sketchy. But you can you? That's it. There's nothing in there. Them junks is hard. There's no block. Just a hardened cardboard shoe with some leather in there and some fabric. That's all, folks. Show and tell is over. What is The Turnout by Megan Abbott about? This is really a psychological thriller. And is it it's got some psychological elements to it. It's definitely tense, a bit claustrophobic, but it's not thriller in what I would probably put in the same category as something like Alfred Hitchcock movies. No, but it's a bit of a trip. So in The Turnout, the Durant sisters, Dara and Marie, I was going to call her Michelle, her name is Marie, run their mother's ballet school. Their parents have died or passed away. They were killed in a car accident, I want to say 10 to 15 years prior to when this particular story takes place. And Dara's husband, Charlie, also helps them run the school. Now, Charlie has grown up with them. He was taken in at a young age and stayed with the sisters and her parents because his own background with his parentage is a little dodgy, apparently. He needed somebody to take him in. And so they lead a pretty insular life. Their life is revolved around ballet and their school and the studio and performances that they put on. And their studio / school is actually really successful. But then an accident happens at the school. And then that just completely changes the trajectory of their lives. And there is this guy named Derek who comes into the picture as a result of this accident. And then the tension just keeps on building between the sisters and Charlie and the sisters and Derek and Charlie and Derek. It's a hot mess. And then all of this is kind of leading up to the Nutcracker season. So the Nutcracker is constantly running in the background of this plot. And again, there's only so much I can say other than that won't give anything away. And you have to be kind of you have to be careful with novels like this because there are even minor details that spoil things. So instead, I'm just going to, as of this point, I'm just going to talk about a few things that stuck out to me about this particular book and wrap it up. This book is weird, and Abbott wanted this book to be weird. It's grimy. That's the first word that comes to my mind when I think of the Turnout. It's grimy, it's claustrophobic, it's animalic, it's intense, it's carnal. And by animalic, let me go back to that term. Animalic is actually a term that I don't typically use to describe books. I typically use that word to describe fragrances and perfumes and notes that are in perfumes. And that's where you really see that term the most is in fragrance reviews. But I do think it's applicable here. So animalic refers to notes that are from animals, are used to be derived from animals. Now they have synthetic versions because it's not ethical to use them anymore. Musk is an animalic scent. People now have used synthetic versions of musk versus actually getting it from the deer itself. But that's how you get those fragrances that are a little bit more sensual, because it's messing with it's triggering something in the pheromones. It's intense, it's carnal, and this book is ripe with sexual intention. The innuendos are all over the place. And none of this is anything that you would typically think about when you think about ballet. You often think of what is displayed on the cover. This, long, graceful, swan-like neck, very poised. How effortless these dancers move across the floor. They just make it look so easy. However, most people, when people are really good at what they do, I don't care what it is, but particularly when it comes to dance, I found that people think that it's just easy because it's not football, it's not lifting weights, it's not running track. But in order to make it look that easy, there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that goes on behind it, and people don't really understand how difficult it is. So that's actually perfect for what Abbott is doing with this particular novel, because she's creating a world of dualities here. You've got innocence versus carnality, you've got youth versus adulthood. So the Durant sisters mainly, or really only, teach adolescents, maybe your preteen, very early teenage years, but they're teaching young students. You have femininity versus masculinity, especially when you have Derek come into the picture, because Charlie is a former dancer. The Durant sisters still dance. Obviously, they're teaching classes, but Charlie, due to an injury, a very bad injury, can no longer dance. But he was a dancer, so he's got that gracefulness that a lot of dancers kind of naturally have over years of training. They just move a certain way. But Derek is the exact opposite. I mean, he's like testosterone through the roof type guy. Then we have pain versus pleasure, and then we have beauty versus ugliness, and so on and so forth. And here is a quote. To her, all dancers' feet were beautiful. Beautiful not in spite of, but because of their hardness, their contortions, their battle against nature, against the body itself. What could be more beautiful, she used to say, than a will like that? I mean, you do have to kind of be a little bit insane to stick your foot in one of these and be like, yeah, I'm going to dance on my big toe. Again, another misconception that all of the weight is being carried on the big toe. No, the entire body is engaged, and the entire body has to be strong to even get on point. Core strength is a big one. The glutes, the quads, the hamstrings, the arms. How you hold your arms has a lot to do with how much you're supporting your body, especially when it comes to turns. From the first page of this book, again, I'm not really going to get into much of the plot or details because I'm not trying to spoil anything. But when I picked up this book, and this is what appealed to me, and which is why I kind of bought this book on a whim, because it was titled The Turnout. And so from the first page of this book, I was on the hunt to determine why Abbott called this book the Turnout. Turnout is crucial in ballet. It refers to how flexible, in layman's terms, it refers to how flexible a dancer is at the hip socket or at the hip. And the goal is to have perfect turnout. And what that means is you can get, say this is the hip and you've got a leg, get that leg as perpendicular as you can from the socket. So, a perfect turnout is something like that. But there are dancers, professional dancers, who can never achieve perfect turnout because it has a lot to do with a person's personal anatomy, and you should just never force it beyond a certain point, especially if you start older in life. You can permanently injure yourself. But there are some dancers who may maybe be here, which is fine. Some people are a little bit more in a sixth position, which is how you walk in normal everyday life. But to achieve turnout is considered quite the achievement. But it's mentioned, the term turnout, and referring to a dancer's turnout is referred to several times within this book. And she's really using it here as a sexual metaphor. And because the turnout does require that opening up from the hips, there is pre-turnout, virginal, and then there's post-turnout, a rite of passage. And really, there's a sense of maturity that kind of comes with it, maturing as a dancer and then maturing as a feminine being, if you will. Because we're really focusing more here on women, female dancers, rather than men. There is this cheeky quote about when Dara achieved her turnout when she was a child. For the first time, they achieved turnout, rotating their legs from their hip sockets, bodies pushed to contortion, pushed so far to feel ecstatic. Her first time, Dara felt split open, laid bare. So using turnout is as a sexual metaphor falls also right in line with why Abbott uses the Nutcracker as a background to this book. The Nutcracker is often the gateway to ballet, whether you're a dancer or not. I feel like there's something stabbing me in my eye. It's a piece of hair. Get back in your place. Even if you are not into ballet, you've never seen a ballet, you're familiar with the Nutcracker. Many little girls, myself included, they know the Nutcracker, or they knew the Nutcracker from a young age, and that was their, I want to be a dancer. And so it symbolizes this innocence of youth, but when you kind of get into the weeds of the story of the Nutcracker, it's a little darker than that. Especially, I believe the Nutcracker is really a German story, though we are familiar with Tchaikovsky's Ballet. And apparently, the story itself, I should read the original, is pretty dark, which sounds right up my alley. So the main character in the Nutcracker, Clara, she ventures into this fantastical world with her Nutcracker prince. And this also ties in to Derek and how he infiltrates this world of ballet at the studio, and he just turns the sisters' lives upside down. And here is a quote. She becomes fixated with her little Nutcracker, so fixated she sneaks back out to find him after the family goes to bed. She falls asleep with it in her arms, lost in fantasy, until the doll becomes alive as a full-sized man. It's a parable, no. That's really all I'm going to discuss so much with this book. I'm going to get a little bit more into the writing style, but again, this book is a little twisted. And it was really enjoyable. It's a strange novel. I've never read anything quite like this. It definitely straddles some lines. It gave me slight Lolita vibes. So if you are a person who tried to read Lolita and you were like, I can't do it. It doesn't get Lolita is all the way over here, and you've got the Turnout that's definitely, on the spectrum somewhere else. But I definitely picked up on some Lolita vibes. And sidebar, I read Lolita for the first time last year in 2021 with a friend, and disturbing, to say the least, but brilliant. I will reread that book. I should review that book, even though it's a book from last year. I should review that book. That book is worth having a video for. But if that bothers you, even hinting at some of those things bothers you, you might not want to read it. And when I was reading reviews on this book on Goodreads, some people they were like, yeah, I can't do it. That's just not their cup of tea. I totally understand. But if that bothers you, you may want to stray away. Abbott is known for going into some of those dark places, so I kind of knew what I was getting myself into. I also like that Abbott clearly did her research about ballet. She, in the acknowledgments, I believe she shouts out, yes, she shouts out people who helped her make sure that her references to ballet were accurate. And they were. She uses terms and phrases, some of it in the French, some of it in French that made me chuckle. It was good fun. I appreciated that, and the references were indeed very accurate. Abbott's writing style is not flowery at all. I would say it's direct, it's sharp, it's a bit acerbic. But it's not too bare. It's not flowery at all. And what I liked about the writing style is that you forget that the writing style suits a novel like this, because a novel like this is all about the tension that the author is trying to create. It's quite a claustrophobic novel. You're just in this one environment. There are not many settings that take place in this novel. It's the studio, it's the Durant sisters' house, and a few places here or there, but it is very, very insular. And the writing style helps to amplify that. However, when I was reading this book, I kind of completely forgot about the writing style, which is very difficult to achieve. It's not like when you're reading a Dickens novel and you're like, this writing is beautiful. You know what I mean? The reading of something like Dickens, the reading of something like, let me throw something out there, because I'm totally blanking. Even Diana Gabaldon, just because that was the first book that I saw. The reading is part of the writing style is part of the experience. Here, Megan Abbott is able to write and completely step back as a writer when it comes to this style. Very difficult to do. That way I was able to completely focus on the plot and what was happening and forget about, the writing getting in the way of the story, which happened to me the first time I read Sally Rooney. This was a page turner for me as well. I kind of would get in and I would just fly through. So it didn't take me long to get through at all. And as for a person who likes to read really dense, long literature, that's refreshing to me. Sometimes I need these kind of books in my life as palate cleansers. And I will reread this because it is twisted. Man, this book is weird. I will say that one of my bookish friends on the internet, she is also a ballerina. She wasn't particularly fond on the way that Abbott portrays ballet here. There are a lot of stereotypes that she does play on about when it comes to eating issues among the dance culture, which is very prevalent in modeling culture as well. And even though people are having more discussions about this and the issues, ballet is very, very slow to change. It is an industry. I'm going to call it what it is. It is an industry. It's slower to change than, say, even the fashion industry and the modeling industry, because ballet, modeling like this too, but ballet is just, it's all about proportions and perfection. And when you have all these dancers on I'll use Swan Lake as an example. If you've ever seen Swan Lake, everybody is literally the same color, the same height, the same their limbs are something the same length. In some places in the world, they still, measure young dancers so that everything looks perfectly uniform and in sync. That is definitely changing, which is why you have dancers like Misty Copeland and those who came before her. But it is very slow moving. And she does touch on the perfection, the hyper perfection, the cattiness between young girls who are competing for positions and for lead roles. She talks about how they're not eating. People are fainting, getting sick, all that stuff. So it gets pretty grimy. But again, I think she does that on purpose because this whole book is supposed to feel, like I said, animalic. She really hones in on the sensory element of a dancer, the sweat, the blood, bloody shoes, blood in the pointe shoes, toes that are taped, leotards that are soaked through. So, but I can see how that is not everybody's cup of tea, and I can see that as a constructive criticism. However, I enjoyed it, and I see why she did it. I'm going to stop rambling. I felt like this was a bit of a rambly review just because, again, I didn't really get into the themes as much or even the characters as much as I normally would, because I don't want to spoil anything if you pick this up, again, because this is supposed to be like a psychological thriller. Even diving too much into what some of these characters are like, especially Dara and Marie, is going to give away too much. It's best to go into something like this completely blind, I think, other than the general plot. So yeah, have you read this book? This is a new release. It was released in 2021. Yes, it was released last year. And I saw the picture and I was like, I need that. I need it now. And I got it. So have you read this? Would you read this? You don't have to be a ballet aficionado or fan to enjoy this book, but I think that some of those backgrounds make it a little bit more interesting as a reader, right? So that is all I have for you today. Let me know if you read psychological thrillers like this or weird books, if you like books that get kind of nitty gritty. And I will see you guys in my next video. All my links are down below. Feel free to like, subscribe, and leave me a comment. Again, this video is rambly and all over the place. I will see you in the next one.